To accuse others of one's own misfortune is a sign of want of education. To accuse oneself shows that the education has begun. To accuse neither oneself nor others shows that one's education is complete. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the All Around Growth Podcast. I figured this morning we would start the day with a quote by Epictetus. And this is episode number 179 of the show that provides insight and tools to building the life and homestead of our dreams. My name is Rob Kaiser and I am your host. And that quote is one of many that comes from a video titled Epictetus Life-Changing Quotes, Stoicism. And I've linked to that in the show notes. Some of you may be asking yourselves, who is Epictetus? And what is Stoicism? Quote, part of what makes Stoicism fascinating to study is that three of its most well-known practitioners ranged widely in terms of where they stood in society. Think of Marcus Aurelius, the emperor of the Roman Empire, holding one of the most powerful positions in the world. Think of Seneca, who was an advisor to an emperor, renowned playwright, and one of the richest people in the Roman Empire. And then there was Epictetus, on the complete opposite, who was born as a slave. That's what makes Stoicism so powerful. It can provide timeless principles to help in both good and bad fortune, no matter our situation in life. Epictetus was born nearly 2,000 years ago in Hierapolis, present-day Pamukkale in Turkey, as a slave in a wealthy household. Epictetus, his owner, gave him permission to pursue liberal studies, and it is how Epictetus discovered philosophy through the Stoic Musonius Rufus, who became his teacher and mentor. Later, Epictetus obtained his freedom shortly after Emperor Nero's death and started teaching philosophy in Rome for nearly 25 years. This lasted until Emperor Domitian famously banished all philosophers in Rome. Epictetus fled to Nicopolis in Greece, where he founded a philosophy school and taught there until his death. You can read more about Stoicism and a number of different philosophers at dailystoic.com/Epictetus. Now, I wanted to read that and get some of that out of the way because for quite some time I've had a mixed bag, mixed emotions on Stoicism. Why, you ask? Well, my experience was that a number of people who were, I don't know, in the circles that I was interested in, circles of people that I followed, for lack of a better term. They were constantly, not constantly, frequently talking about Stoicism. And it was annoying. I found it annoying. As I look back during the time that this occurred in my life, this was also the time that I was busy with life. I wasn't leading a full life by any means. I was busy chasing other people's dreams, spending money that I didn't have, doing things I didn't fully understand, going deeply into debt. wandering because I was lost. Not all who wander are lost. I like that saying so much, I have it on a t-shirt. But that was not the case a few years ago. I was wandering and I was lost. When I heard people talk about Stoicism, it was annoying to me because I felt as though these people were oftentimes parroting some wisdom that they were lacking, perhaps, or didn't have, or couldn't create on their own accord, so they spent a lot of time regurgitating this this Stoicism. Okay, so then something happened. I started listening, reading some. See, this is the beauty of the algorithm. It's also part of why the algorithm is so dangerous, because the algorithm doesn't think. Okay? The algorithm is dangerous because the algorithm is designed to produce a desired result. The algorithm doesn't think. The algorithm is like your mind. You can put bad things in your mind, and your mind will cultivate those things and grow. You can put positive things in your mind will cultivate those things and it will grow. Positive or negative, it doesn't matter. Your mind will grow those things. Your mind will grow whatever you put into it. It's like the story that Earl Nightingale shares when he talks about the strangest secret in the world, how our mind is like the earth that the farmer plants seeds in. He can plant 2 seeds in the earth. One is a seed of corn, the other nightshade, a deadly poison. The earth doesn't care. The farmer plants that seed, covers it, waters it, takes care of it. Both plants grow. One produces food, corn. The other produces a deadly poison. The ground, like our mind, doesn't care. It provides what we put into it based on how we cultivate it. And if we don't cultivate anything at all, then nature always fills a void on the ground with weeds, and our minds, mental weeds, distractions, social media, pornography, drugs, alcohol. Back to Stoicism. Like I said, I would follow these people. I would listen to them talk about Stoicism. I would think about how it annoyed me. And then I realized there was more to gain from it than there was to lose. So I began reading some. I began listening, keeping these things in the background, sometimes in the mornings. For whatever reason, I did that again this morning. I haven't listened to this particular 15-minute series of quotes in months, but for whatever reason I did this morning. That quote stood out to me for no particular reason. To accuse others of one's own misfortune is a sign of want of education. To accuse oneself shows that the education has begun. To accuse neither oneself nor others shows that one's education is complete. And when I heard that last line about making no accusation whatsoever, the wisdom of that reminded me of the wisdom so frequently seen and heard and read in Taoism. What I mean by that is by making no accusations whatsoever and having that be an indicator that one's education is complete. I think that's the case because we're not looking to blame anyone. As Dave Ramsey says, it's life on life's terms. And we don't use that as an excuse either. Rather, we look at life on life's terms and we look at everything as an observation. Something else that is occurring in someone else's world. As we go through this world ourselves, so do all the others that cross our path. I'm headed back to work after another 4-day weekend. This has been the third in a row. And it's been welcome and needed. Part of the reason why I listened to this video this morning of life-changing quotes by Epictetus is that sometimes I feel like a slave in the circumstances of life. And it is easier to blame people for behaving the way that they do, to blame people for their failure to keep others in line, for their failure to manage, for their failure in leadership. Sometimes we just blame people for being an asshole. And sometimes that's appropriate. But more often than not, I know for me, I engage because it's the easy way. And I've noticed that my attitude lately this year, perhaps above all, and last season, maybe to a certain extent, my attitude here at the day job just hasn't been good. And that may be justifiable in some ways, but again, that is an excuse. I control how I respond. And if I continue to take pride in the work that I do, I will continue to feel good about the work that I do. And as long as I can continue to feel good about the work that I do, I'll have an easier time accepting the fact that I currently am a slave, in terms of a wage slave. And much in the same way that Epictetus found his freedom through education, then I will continue to work to find my own freedom through education and learning. Because there is a difference between those two words, education and learning. But we can talk about that another time. All right, guys, that's about it for today's show. If you like what you heard and you want updates when new content is dropped, you can subscribe to the Telegram broadcast channel for show updates only at t.me/allaroundgrowthpodcast. If you want to participate in a group chat with fellow audience members and myself who are all on a similar path, consider joining the community at t.me/allaroundgrowth. And at this point in time, based on the statistics that I see, it looks like about half of our audience is listening via Apple Podcasts. So if that is you, there is a brief video in the show notes as well, or a link to it, on how to leave a rating and review in the podcast app. And Apple Podcast listeners are definitely encouraged to do so. As I spoke about algorithms earlier, ratings and definitely written reviews help affect the algorithm, and if you would be so kind as to take a moment and do that, I would most certainly appreciate it. If you are not an Apple Podcast listener, and even if you are, I would encourage you to share the show on social media. Share it with a friend or loved one if you think they might benefit from some of the words that I have to say. And if you want to drop me a line personally for some feedback on the show, or even suggest a topic in the future, you can do so at allaroundgrowth@gmail.com, or by simply reaching out in the Telegram chat at t.me/allaroundgrowth. This is Rob Kaiser, and thank you.